Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today, and it just seems like there's just more and more disturbing news as we go. And today we're going to be looking at something that's happened in New York City, something that's being reported now on Twitter. It's on TikTok. You may have seen the video. Almost 1 million people, 750,000 people have been seeing this. And it's truly disturbing, and it needs to be talked about. It needs to be discussed what it is and where it's coming from. Because if we don't, it's only going to get worse for our society. This is a problem, and it's growing. Before I get to that, though, I do want to mention that if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary on this program. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on Facebook, Twitter, DLive, all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to hear your voice, to hear your comments from anywhere in the world, because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to free speech. Regardless of what country you're in and what that government may believe, no matter what the internet overlords believe, we believe everyone has an inalienable right to free speech, and we want you to celebrate that with us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope that we will see you with us this Sunday at 2:30. So let's get into the issue for today, the story that we're going to be talking to you about. And I do need to mention that it is somewhat graphic. It's violent. It's not more violent than a PG movie, but at the same time, it is worse. It is far, far worse because it's the real world. This is a situation that is happening in real time, and it's something that's being repeated over and over again. And I'm truly disturbed by this on multiple levels, and I think we all should be. And we need to condemn this for what it is, and there are many people who are not. They're supporting this. Now, I'm working on something with covering the Merrick Garland, the United States AG, and his conversation with the Senate today. And I'm waiting for responses to come back from the county sheriff's department. I'm waiting for a response from my local school department so I can do that. And then in the meantime, I was looking through Twitter and I ran across this story. And this is from Mike Cernovich, who is a blue check mark on Twitter. And he presented this. This is a repost of something that was on TikTok. It's a problem because it's a video of something that happened in the subway system, and we presume it happened today. Now, I'm not going to tell you that this is exactly accurate. There's a beginning part to this that doesn't appear, that doesn't exist. There's an end that we don't know the final fruition of it. This is just a moment in time, but it's a very telling moment in time about what's happening in America right now. What are the consequences of the progressive push of racism and the hype on racism and the division of races as it's been pushed by the progressive ideology? That white people are inherently evil, black people are inherently victims. And we see this absolutely detailed in about a minute and a half. And I'm going to play that for you in just 1 second. It's troubling. And again, I want to give another warning. This is violent, not overly violent. Again, it's PG rated in terms of violence, but it's more disturbing than any movie that you may see. So I want to show you. And again, to set this up as we understand and as it's stated on the video, this is an individual who is on a subway train. The black man has just gotten on. He is a father, presumably. He has several children with him on the train, and he wanted more space for those children. And he's yelling, apparently, at the subway car to get more room. And this is during the middle of the day. And if you're not from New York City, which I am, subway cars get very crowded throughout the day. So it's very normal that there isn't a lot of room for anyone, adults or children. And so this man took offense at that, and someone told him to calm down, to chill. And this was his response to that indication.
My train riding and my feet.
Say it to my face now. Say it to my face now. Tell me to take a chill pill. Say the word chill pill. Say the word chill pill. Say the word chill pill.
Yo, you wildin'. She is female. What?
Mind your business. Say it again.
That's OD. That's OD.
I'm telling you niggas in my black business. You understand? Mind your business. How do y'all niggas roll up in my fucking business? I'm dealing with my fucking kids. You understand? Mind your business. Mind your business. It ain't about being a role model. It's about getting my fucking respect from people like you. All these other races out here. Mind your business.
I never gave.
Man, I'm ready to fuck anything up that's in my business.
So that's my man's right there.
Holla at me, man.
And he let his girlfriend get robbed.
What I thought, y'all niggas out here looking for victims. I'm a fucking suspect. You understand?
Oh no.
Suspect. I do shit out here.
This is not.
Mind your business. And when my family on the train,
You wanna rock the nigga so
out
bad.
the way.
And it's like he's not even talking. Oh, shit.
Everybody got something to say about what black.
Disturbing on so many levels. So many things about this are absolutely wrong, that need to be called out, that need to be condemned. And we're going to do it if no one else will. Let's start off with the very simple fact that, first of all, violence against anyone, that is because you don't like what they said, that's wrong. That's condemnable right there. Denouncing. I don't care who you are. If someone says something you don't like, that does not give you the right to be able to physically assault them. Except that's what we hear from progressives all the time. You've said something they don't like. Well, that's violence. Your words are violence. If you say things that someone doesn't like, that offends them, well, then you have a right to physically assault them. That's what we are told from the progressive ideology. And people have been hearing this for years. It's been on all the news media. It's been in all social media. It's something that we hear repeated by elected officials and various organizations. It was what we were told nonstop for 6 months in 2020 as cities burned to the ground and people were killed. And so we shouldn't be surprised that we see this very angry man on the train resorting to nothing but violence because someone told him to chill. How absolutely terrible. What a racist statement to say. That someone told him to chill, and his reaction to that is not only to use his words, which fine, you may not like that, but that's a response, but then to become physically violent about that. That's a problem. That's an absolute problem, and no one should be defending that. Although, and as you'll get into it, you'll see there are people who are defending that. But let's also look at another component. This is a man hitting a woman. Someone saying, well, this is about toxic masculinity. No, it's not. First of all, that individual, he's not a man in the sense that, yes, he's grown, but he's not a man. A man doesn't need to put his hands on anyone because he doesn't agree with what they said. I don't care how bad his day was. I don't care how upset he may be. When someone says something to you, the answer isn't put your hands on someone. But this isn't about masculinity. And I understand he hit a woman. Again, yet another thing that I would condemn. Men don't need to beat on women. We should not see that. As a society, we have long ago said that is wrong. And yet now, especially culturally, we're saying that that's okay. In this case, it's excused because, and the man uses this excuse to say, well, she's a white woman. There is the excuse. There's the exception to the rule that we've been taught by progressives for years now. This is a white woman speaking to a black man. So her white privilege was speaking to this black victim, and therefore her words are violent. To say chill, take a chill pill, that is a violent statement. It is a statement from a slave owner to a slave, and therefore the only reaction is violence. This is what we hear from progressives. This is the progressive ideology in action. And that is absolutely insane. It is no more and no less than a man hit a woman because he didn't like what she had to say. In many cases, if you saw that between a husband and wife, you would think that is domestic abuse. We would consider this an assault. The fact that the races are different doesn't change the fact that what you saw was a male hitting a female because the male didn't like what the woman had to say. Is it about toxic masculinity? No. This is an individual who has a problem. The fact that he happens to be male, that's kind of secondary. He has a problem. And his problem stems from the fact that he believes that when people say something he doesn't like, he has been offended. This is a microaggression. He can then use that as an excuse to physically assault individuals. That is a mental deficiency on his part, which has been promoted by progressive ideology. And I'm going to explain why I'm saying, and you're going to say to me, well, Mike, you don't know that's progressive. You don't know that he's a Democrat. Hell, aren't you the one who says that no one should assume black people are Democrats or progressives just because of the color of their skin? And I will tell you, you are absolutely right. I'm not saying it because that he's black and she's white. I don't know. They could both be Democrats for all I know. They could both be members of BLM for all I know. I don't care. But the reason why I say that he's using progressive ideology, and this is a consequence of that ideology, is what he says about it. Because when we go to about the 20-second mark, I believe it was 21 seconds into the video, and I believe it's right here, and I'll show you. So again, this is about 24 seconds in, and he says,
She is female. What? That's OD. That's OD.
I'm tired of you niggas in my black business.
that's it right there. I'm tired of you, slur, in my black business. He goes on later to say, oh, I'm a victim. Remember, he says this, I believe it's right about here, about a minute in, and we hear him say,
Suspect. I do shit out here.
yeah, he's a suspect, that people are looking at him, that he is a victim. He is a suspect, that this is about the way people look at black people. How dare you look at him as a criminal? Why are you looking at him like a suspect? Just because he committed a crime in front of your eyes. How absolutely terrible of you. You must be racist because you witnessed this man assault a woman because he didn't like the words that she said. And as that is the result, well, that's because he's a black man. That's why you're upset about it. That's why you're thinking this is a crime, when in fact he's supporting himself. So he's fighting against the white patriarchy. He's fighting against white supremacy. Don't you see that? Really, folks, this is sick. This is sick on every level. And he is using the progressive ideology to his advantage. This is like what we see at Loudoun County, where we see individuals like the young man who went into a women's bathroom for the purpose of being able to sexually assault a young minor woman. A 14, maybe 15-year-old girl. He went in and raped her because he was wearing a dress, taking advantage of the rules that had been changed. And they were trying to protect trans people. I'm not against trans people, but he abused the rules because of the short-sightedness of those rules. And the ideology, the progressive ideology that said, oh yeah, he claims he's going to be trans. He can go anywhere he wants. And the safety and concern of women, that's secondary. It doesn't matter. And in this case, we see this black man is asserting that progressive ideology that white people are white supremacists, that they're evil innately and inherently. And we've heard from people like progressive leaders of tomorrow. We've heard from Antifa and BLM as they say, well, when white people say things, well, that's because of white superiority. It's them being slave owners. When that woman told this black man to chill, well, that's a matter of her being a white slave owner telling a black slave. That's how they excuse this. And if you think I'm kidding, look down in the comments on this. There are people who commented on that. Besides the fact that they said, well, this is about toxic masculinity. No, this is about progressivism. And then you see another individual. Where is it? I saw the comment here. I don't see the comment now. The person may have removed it. But this is about this is about fighting white privilege. That's the whole idea behind it. It should shock people, not just because of the violence that's inherently involved here, but also because of the excuse that is being given to justify it. And it apparently is working, because everyone on that train are afraid to do something. They barely are willing to say anything. A man just assaulted a woman because of a couple of words. And no one, including apparently her boyfriend, as the video seems to attest to, would do anything about it. And his answer, his prevention of having any repercussion that should naturally occur is, oh, well, I'm a black man, and if you do anything, well, that's supporting racism. It's because you think you're thinking in a racist manner. This guy is teaching kids. He's got kids who are watching this whole thing. And his kids are learning from him. And they are learning the lesson that if you're black assaulting white people, it's okay. If you're a man assaulting a woman, as long as the color is different, that's okay. Because white people are bad. And when people of different races, different groups, actually say something to you that you don't like, that you take an offense from, a microaggression as they call it, then it's completely appropriate to respond with violence. A lesson that these kids are learning in their schools, especially in New York City. They are learning this lesson every day as part of the critical race theory, the gender identity politics, the intersectionality that they are being taught in schools every day. That justifies this. It's okay. That is terrifying to me. There are so many things that are wrong with this video, and not least of which is the fact that this was allowed to happen and that people would rather watch this occur without even saying, with barely a person saying, this is wrong, that you have committed a crime, that there is no excuse for being physically violent just because you didn't like what someone said, which wasn't offensive in the first place. Chill pill? Come on. Besides that being a very old saying, it's not offensive. It's not an insult. It's not a microaggression. This individual's talking about, I need room for my kids. You have no rights because he is asserting his right as a black man. So you must defer. You must give up your rights and give his kids space. Now, I understand if you say, hey, please, my kids are right here. I want to give you some space. I've been in New York. I grew up in New York. I've been riding subway trains since I was about 14. I understand how subways can be incredibly tightly packed and that there's no room for anyone. I can understand, and I've seen throughout my life, parents saying, I need some room for my kids. Can you give my kids some room? And people do very often try to give them room because of human decency. But to then turn around and have someone say, hey, calm down, because this individual, I have no doubt when we watch the video and watch this guy, I have no doubt that he came in with an attitude. I have no doubt that he came in with aggression. demanding that people do things for him against their will because he said so. Because that's what he's presenting in this video. And so if he didn't get a response that he wanted, I'm not surprised that people wouldn't necessarily try to back down or just fold and do what he says. But then he's saying this is about his blackness. This isn't about blackness. This has nothing to do with being a black individual. No one's oppressing his kids because they're standing on a crowded subway car and there isn't much room. They're not trying to oppress him by standing close to him because there's no room, as the video shows, in the car, or very little room. That's not about race. But he wants to make it about race because that gives him an excuse. It excuses his poor actions. It excuses his lack of civility. It excuses his violence. And he knows it. And that's why he says, oh, I'm a victim. Here we're looking at a suspect. He's not a victim. He is an aggressor. He is a criminal. He's committed a crime. In fact, he committed a crime. It's assault. He hit someone because they said chill pill. That's not racially motivated. That is violence. And he is teaching that violence to his kids, as his schools are teaching his kids that because they are black, they are victims for life. And because they are black, white people are racist by definition for life. And that is the lesson that they got taught in school that they get to see now in person, live on a subway car. These are the consequences of the progressive ideology. You may not hear it like that. You may not have thought of it like that, but that's what this is. Where individuals, some of them will take these rules, these ideas, and they will run with them. And they will abuse them to use them for their twisted purposes. This individual is using the fact that he is black and he decided to assault a white person, and in particular a white woman. He's using the progressive ideology to defend himself. You can't touch me because I'm a black man defending myself from a woman who is 6 inches shorter than him, about 100 pounds lighter than him, who had no aggression to him whatsoever. And you can hear from, and you're going to say, and I know many people would say, well, Mike, how do you know she didn't say something racially insensitive to him? Because this guy who has no problem telling us exactly what he's upset about didn't mention it. Not once did he say someone called him a racial slur. Not once did he say that they were being racially insensitive, beyond the fact that they exist. Their existence was racially offensive to this demented, dim-witted brute. But that isn't a crime, nor is it an assault. It is not an aggression to exist. Nor is it to have, for someone in public to have a comment about your public commentary and your public actions. That is also not an assault. But this is where progressivism is leading us. And not everyone lives in New York City. And not everywhere you live has a subway. And that subway may not always be super crowded. But sometimes it is. Maybe it's a bus. Maybe it's crossing the street. Maybe it's a restaurant or a movie theater. Maybe it's when you're going to and from school. In those same kind of conditions, when we go with this progressive ideology, we get this same kind of scenario. At any time, you could see that same kind of mentality that drove this brute, this vicious, dumb brute, to do what he did. Any other person of color could claim the same thing under the same progressive ideology. To be violent to someone just because of what they said, just because they exist, just because they're in front of you. And I know there are people who are part of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, who are part of Antifa, who are part of BLM, that would say that's absolutely true. because of the oppression, because we're in a system of systemic racism. No, that's how you destroy a society. That's how you destroy a government. That's how you destroy people. There's nothing in that. That's a power grab. And the power grab that we see from individuals like Mr. Cernovich, who's mentioning Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and many others, yeah, that's what they're promoting. And I see there was a comment in here saying, well, why are you asking, why are you directing this towards Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Because this is the progressive ideology she supports. These are the ideals that the Democratic Party are supporting at this time because they've capitulated to the progressive wing of their party. They promote critical race theory. They promote intersectionality and gender identity politics. They promote people thinking exactly this way. This is exactly what CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Washington Post, this is what they have been promoting and telling people. This is the message this black guy has now absorbed and is parroting as he commits his crimes. And this is, without question, a crime. And it is upsetting that not one single person decided to defend this man. Imagine, this is exactly like what we saw recently, what was it, a week and a half ago? Woman in Philadelphia at a subway was raped. No one stopped to help her because our society has made us all separated. There is no connection. There is no public utility anymore. This gentleman, DB, says it's called a white privilege check. And Darren Anderson says, oh, what the hell does this have to do with AOC? Progressivism. We see Trey say, oh, and there's nothing at all. It has nothing to do with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, except it has to do with her philosophy, her politics, her progressive ideology that she is trying to push into America and across this nation. It's this very same ideology. It's the very same words that they are promoting that this man is quoting to justify his crime. So yeah, it has to do with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Cori Bush and the entire Democratic Party at this point as they push this. Our school systems, and we see critical race theory grow and expand and teach our children so that the 5-year-olds, the 8-year-olds, the 12-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, they're learning this and they're seeing this real world application on TikTok and on YouTube and on Twitter, on Facebook, and in their lives. And the outcome is not going to be positive. This is not going to be good for anyone. This is a problem, America. It's a problem that's getting worse by the day. It's a problem that is getting worse as we see more and more of this taught to our kids. There are consequences. And I'm sure there are some progressives that'll say, that's not what I meant. That's not what we're supposed to be supporting. That isn't what we support. But it is a consequence of what you do support. And we have to live with those consequences as a community, as a society, as a nation. There's a reason why you should look at this and say, no, this isn't right. And that's because it's just wrong. It's not just. There's no justification for it. I don't care that he's saying, well, I'm a black man, so I'm a victim. No, you're making yourself a victim. You're buying into the victimhood to excuse the wrongness of what you have done. That doesn't mean you're absolved. We have to understand the consequences of what our leaders are doing and how our kids are perceiving it and what it does to our society. Because it's only getting worse. And if we continue to allow this to occur without denouncing it, without speaking out against it, it will only get even worse than this. But that's what I think. Perhaps you watched this video and you thought, well, no, Mike, it's justified. Because that white woman represents white slavery and white supremacy. So it's okay because he's black. Maybe you think, well, no, it's okay because it's a microaggression. Maybe you think that the progressive ideology justifies what we saw. And if you do, please explain to me why I'm wrong. Please explain to me how this is excused. I want to hear your comments. I want to see what you have to say. And hopefully, we'll also see you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live stream to hear your comments about this and other things that are going on in our community, our society, our world at this time.